Good day. Welcome to Gettysburg National Military Park. My name is Deb Novotny, and we're in the area of the Soldiers National Monument here at the cemetery. I'm going to be talking about the cemetery a little bit, but mostly about this monument and what it meant. When I first started guiding, we always stopped in the cemetery, and I would have about 10 minutes to do some interpretation in here. Now it's only on request that guides can come in here with their parties because of time limitations. But this monument, to me, was like a history book. And I think back in the days when everybody didn't graduate from high school or go on to college, that's what they did. They made monuments that would be teaching memorials. And so this has a lot of meaning to me. First of all, it was planned from the get-go when this cemetery was established by the 18 northern states who had men who died in the battle. They got William Saunders, a very famous architect, landscape architect, to design the cemetery. He came here when it was a cornfield and an apple orchard, and he saw the lay of the land, how it slopes like this, and he decided to make it more like an amphitheater, a semicircle of graves for each of the 18 northern states. They would have their own plot for their men, and of course some for the U.S. regulars, and also there would be some unknowns that they didn't know what state they came from. The plan called for a monument, a soldier's monument, to be placed in the center of the semicircle. And so in Saunders' plan, it was established that there was to be a Soldiers' National Monument. Of course, it was the 18 northern states that established this cemetery, although it was called the Soldiers' National Cemetery, and this is the Soldiers' National Monument. We really don't have the federal government getting involved until 1872. So it's a state's cemetery at first. So they appropriated money from the states according to how many men they had in the battle. So New York and Pennsylvania would put in quite a bit of the money. This memorial alone cost $50,000. And it was to be actually dedicated, the cornerstone, in July, 4th of July, 1865. They laid the cornerstone, which I never knew there really was a cornerstone until just a few years ago, because the park did some excavating under this part right behind me of the memorial. This is where the cornerstone was found to be. And they did look inside, and I guess water had gotten into the box, and a lot of the things that the 18 northern states put in got wet, and I don't think too many of them could be salvaged. But the park made an inventory, and I'm not sure if they put everything back in and put it back in the northwest corner or not. But that was the cornerstone. They got a firm from New England, the J.G. Batterson Company, to do the stonework, the pedestal, to design it. And I always thought it was Batterson that actually did the designing of this monument, but it wasn't. It probably was one of his workers, James Keller, I think was his name. Batterson was a very interesting person. He was born in 1823. He definitely was an entrepreneur, I guess you might call it. In 1863, he started the Travelers Casualty Insurance Company of Hartford, Connecticut, and it's still in existence today. In fact, in the corner, he did sign it. He put his name on it over here, so come over here and we'll see it. It says J.G. Batterson Fecit, F-E-C-I-T. Good thing I took Latin in high school. That means made it. So Batterson made it. J.G. James Goodwin Batterson. And he has Hartford, Connecticut down at the bottom there. So guides are always looking for something to tell people about their state. So this was one of the Connecticut things you could get in halfway through the tour when we used to stop here. Batterson was an interesting person. He was one of the first Egyptologists. He went to Egypt before the Civil War and studied the pyramids and ancient ruins over there in Egypt. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit later on. So Batterson, or his employee, designed the monument to have 5 figures on it, one at the very top, and that would be Liberty. Then down below, there was to be war and history, peace and plenty. So I think it was Batterson probably actually got in touch with this American sculptor. His name was Randolph Rogers, and he was born in Waterloo, New York, but he spent a lot of his early days in Ann Arbor, Michigan. But early on, he was a classical sculptor. He decided he was going to leave the United States and pretty much permanently live in Rome, Italy, because he wanted to study from the masters, the master crafts sculptors. So he was actually in Rome when this work would be done, and the sculptures then had to be brought to the United States. Randolph Rogers was born in 1825. So both these men are about the same age that are involved with this monument. I'll be talking a little bit more about Randolph Rogers in a little later, the rest of his life. But right now, I'd like to talk about the monument itself and the symbolism on the memorial.